Hello, welcome to another edition of Independent Voices. I'm your host, James Lott Jr., here on JLJ Media within association, IIABCAL.org. I'm glad to be here to bring you independent voices, and that's what I do. And I have an independent voice. It's here in insurance. She's a regional managing director, Southwest for, let me say it correct, I gave my own handwriting. The Newfront?
Newfront.
I did have my
Absolutely.
own handwriting, Newfront. She's also executive vice president. She says, I saw in part of her bio, risk taker, which I love, inclusion champion, that's like my favorite, agile strategist. She is somebody I'm excited to have on the show, and it's Linde Hotchkiss. Hi, Linde.
Hi. Happy to be here.
How are you? First of all, how are you?
I'm fantastic,
Good,
actually.
good. This month, as we're recording this, today is Juneteenth, which to me is American history. And it is also a federal holiday, actually, for me since 2019 or 20.
20.
Okay. Also, it's African Caribbean American Month. So I'm Caribbean American, so remember that. And if you're LGBTQIA plus an ally, it's Pride Month. So you have a lot going on in June. And so welcome everybody for all of those. I celebrate all of those. And so I'm gonna start with the light question with you, Linde. The light question. How important is inclusion personally in your life? And then on the flip side, professionally in insurance?
Thanks for asking. And I think inclusion is critical just for living our best lives. And so, the way that I like to look at things, diversity is about counting heads. Inclusion is about making heads count. Said another way, diversity is a data-driven exercise and inclusion is a choice. And I lead unconscious bias workshops. I'm committed to being visible so that I can create a space of safety and belonging for others. And so I tell people to look across every room, every conversation, think about who or might be feeling like an outsider and do or say something to bring them into the conversation. Many times it will surprise you. And at Newfront, one of the things that I love is our ethos, which is work, love, play. And you have to fill each of those three buckets to be fulfilled in life. And so there's a lot of that overlap between work and play and love. And so it's the same answer for me personally and professionally.
Yes, I always, I've had I've sought out on purpose and have had many insurance folk from different backgrounds on the show. Because personally, when I was in the insurance industry for 11 years back in the 2000s, um, I didn't see folks look like me in the business. I now know there's a few. Mark Todd is one. My buddy Mark Todd, I know one who's black, like me. But I didn't see a lot of, I don't say minorities, I don't call nobody's minor, so I don't say that word anymore, but marginalized people who want to get into the business. And I was curious if you agree with me on some level. I feel like we have to reflect what's out there. The neighborhoods, the businesses, they're diverse. So sometimes they might be apt to want to work with someone that looks like them in insurance. So is that part of some of your thinking too, or how you think also?
Yeah, absolutely. We have to mirror the communities that we work in. And, unfortunately, there are very, very few Black insurance professionals. And so there are two ways that we can, work to change that. And one is obviously, the ones that we have, do everything we can to help them learn and grow and develop and be promoted. And the other thing is start young, meaning right out of college. We're recruiting in the places that we need to in order to attract and then bring on board that next generation of insurance professionals. And so I think it is something that needs to change. When you look at some of the studies that McKinsey and other organizations have done, when you look at diverse organizations, the Fortune 500, there was one study that takes the Fortune 500 and looks at those that have the greatest diversity across their executive leadership and their boards. And those that have the most gender diversity outperform their peers by 15% on compound annual growth rates over time. But then you look at those that take into account race and gender, that outperform goes up to 23% better over time. Fortune 500 companies. It's very clear, and so it's that's the business case for anybody who is thinking, oh, I need a reason to do this. Other than it being the right thing to do, it actually has a long-term effect on your business performance.
Well, in insurance or in any industry, we're talking about insurance because it's an insurance show. We're always looking for perpetuation, my big words today, and also regeneration. You just said you got to get the next. There's you should always looking for next gen. You should always looking for that. And I like what you said. So I noticed, and maybe you can speak just a little more. Are there more colleges in California starting to offer insurance program? How are we reaching out to people? I'm just curious. Like, how are we getting there?
Yeah, there are more universities every day that are adding risk management degree programs, because that is something that is pretty broad and pretty hireable. So the colleges are looking at, where can we have a strong stream of jobs that our graduates can go into, and obviously insurance is a fantastic career for anybody. But I think it's interesting when I started in this industry, 30 years ago.
Yes, exactly.
It was two schools. It was Temple University and Georgia, and so it's definitely much bigger than that now. And we've also hired folks from economics programs, finance programs, because they're adjacent to risk management and risk. And so it's not always risk management, but yeah, there's a lot more out there, and there's a lot more ways to engage with students with some of the cohorts that they have on campuses, LGBTQ centers, Black students, et cetera. I mean, the affinity groups that we can engage with on college campuses it makes that proposition a lot easier.
So outreach, basically, what it is. Outreach and marketing and outreach. Yeah, I think that's also because yes, I know I've done this show, and I have followers from other things that I do. But they have kind of slid over here to watch this program because they actually like the interviews and get to know people. It said, I didn't know insurance provided workable hours where you could still go to your kids' baseball games. I didn't know insurance could last. I didn't know insurance had a vast, you could be in marketing, you could be in podcasting, you could be in this, you could be in that. Like it's property casualty, it's home life. They didn't realize how diverse and vast this industry is because, insurance isn't sexy. It doesn't come across as sexy. We gotta, so it's like I always feel like that's always a hurdle for just anybody to get insurance. But insurance is great, right?
Absolutely. And when I came into the insurance industry, what I pictured was, my grandfather who sold insurance.
Yes.
And he was that traditional image in his fedora and his
Yes.
little trench coat and his going to sit at somebody's dining room table and sell them insurance. And so but when you look at some of the things that we're doing that are outside of the box, we're using our company is using AI very significantly to add lift and create opportunities for our team members to do the best work of their career. So insurance is very exciting, especially now.
It is. I will say, I went to the Newfront website. I liked it. It was very easy to navigate. That's number one. I'm old school, just making it easy for me. But two, it was very diverse. And I did like the messaging you had in there. It did give me, I'm from the Bay Area, so it gave me very much a Bay Area feel. Like it's just kind of like we're all, we're a little granola up there. But seriously, it's about people. And I think I think I saw one of your executives was head of people. Like literally, that was the title. And I actually really appreciate that. We're forgetting insurance. It begins with relationships, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have four values at our firm, and it's blaze a trail, these are not in any particular order for my teammates who might
Okay.
be watching. And so
Yeah.
blaze a trail. So we want to be different. We want to be on that edge that is creating change and disruption in our industry. We have focus on people. That is a core value of who we are. Every single one of our employees has equity in our firm. So that also reinforces that, right? We have act like owners because every single employee is an owner, and then deliver results. And so, I think it's important that we have that focus on people as part of our core values, because I don't care how good the AI is. Insurance still comes down to relationships between our clients whom we love and us, and then us and the carriers that we find solutions with. And so some of the tasks can be automated and replaced with AI, but the people part of it, and telling stories and positioning our clients in the best way to the marketplace is still, it's an art, it's not a science.
To have inclusion and equity at a job, um, I believe you have to work. Sometimes you have to work on the work culture. What are some of your thoughts on bettering that, or just kind of shifting it a bit? Because I know the face of the insurance broker and agent is changing. It is. It's not. There are more women, and I shout to all the women who were who blaze trails. I interviewed many of them who blaze trails in this business, where they're like the one woman in the room. We are getting some diversity in that, of course, but what are some of your thoughts on to try to change the work culture?
So I think everything starts with the tone at the top. And I will tell you a story about when I was leaving Willis, and I actually reached out to a dear friend who probably wouldn't mind me mentioning her. Her name is Donna Wilson. She is the CEO of Manat, which is a fairly large law firm out here on the West Coast. And I went to her for some advice, because she had recently moved at the time from Buckley Sandler to Manat, and I wanted advice on navigating that, because I had only been at two companies my entire life. I was at Marsh and McLennan for 21 years, then Willis for 10. And so now I'm stepping out and looking to make a change. And she said, Linde, find a way to introduce or say something about your wife in a conversation with the executive leadership of the company. This is sort of your final. I'm like, no. Like, that's terrifying. I like, what if they then don't like me? What if they, it affects my ability to have them even get to know me any further? And she said, Linde, if they don't like you because of that, or if they,
Right.
pivot away from you, then it's not a company you want to work for. And I'm like, that's true. And so it was scary, but I did it. And I was having a conversation with Kurt DeGrosse, who was the president of ABD, which is the firm that I joined, that is joined now Newfront, and Brian Hetherington, who was the chair. And I told them, something like, "Oh, my wife and I, blah 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 blah." And it was like a pause, and their eyes got big, and I'm like, "Uh-oh, here it
It
comes." And,
comes,
oh
yes.
my God, let us tell you about our DE&I, and we just stood up our council, and we did this and we did that, and oh my God, you do all these different things, and then this, oh, this is amazing, this is great. And I was like, well, that went pretty well.
Yes. Yes.
And so, I mean, that sort of inclusion at the top creates an environment that trickles down. You get people like me who are all about team and teammates and working together and driving change and driving results. And it's absolutely a different environment when you start at the top, and then you bring it all the way down. You reinforce your ethos with rewards and equity for everybody, and that sort of alignment really backs it all up and puts a nice bow on it.
Yeah, because as we both know, we've been around a while, but it's not always the case. It just isn't. You can't always talk freely, and you think, and and right now we have a lot of anti LGBTQ plus laws out there happening and bills, so we have to kind of watch that. But yeah, there's a time I couldn't say anything. And I will tell you, I was in insurance. I said, I was okay. It was okay for me to be open. With most of the people I talked to, they were fine with it. It was more about, can you do the job? And I always feel like that's what it should be about. The job. Can you perform the job you're hired for? No matter what quote unquote, I say quote unquote, are otherwise. It's like, can Linde do your job? Can she actually perform and deliver what she's promised us? And I think that should be, and if they can look at you openly and honestly and just like look at that and go, okay, I think that's again another great thing. Then
Absolutely. I do think there's one, other factor out there, and that is, bias is always going to come in.
yeah,
And bias, it's biological. And so it literally is, we are wired for bias because the brain is barraged with 11 million data points at any given time. And your brain has to take shortcuts in order to survive. So you walk into that cave with a, saber-toothed tiger. Do you, want some time to think it out, or do you want to say, oh, I'm going to be dinner, I'm out of here, right? So it informs that fight or flight. And so, I think the more that the companies do on also, creating awareness of bias. And again, bias is not bad. And I will tell you, I love affinity bias because it is one of those things. If you teach people one thing, and that is to find the one thing that you can connect with this other person on, it's absolutely fantastic. So you and I have had a conversation. We can connect on probably 15 or 20 different things at this point, but that allows us to then create trust, and business moves at the speed of trust, right? So we've got to leverage affinity bias for a positive, find that affinity, leverage it, and that helps you get to trust faster.
I agree. I agree with that. I totally agree with that. I know I know it sounds great and wonderful and all that, but I know that it takes allyship and the person and the folks who are marginalized or othered to both kind of work to kind of come up together. And I know, folks, it can be hard because you're at work. This is your professional life. You're trying to be professional, but like what you're saying, it can be done. Like it can. So I want folks who are watching and thinking, "I'm just so scared." I don't like. Oh, I don't know. I want. It can be done. It can be done, right?
Absolutely.
It's possible, folks. It's always possible. I just want to ask you, why insurance for you?
Well, it was certainly by accident.
Like it always is for all of us. It's always by accident. We didn't grow up doing this. So
Yeah.
yes.
So I had an opportunity to, actually, my girlfriend at the time had interviewed at this company called Fred S. James in Boston, and she said, "Well, you should go check it out." I'm like, "Oh, insurance, I don't know." And I went, and I actually came into insurance through finance. So I was on the finance side of the business, made the shift over to operations, and now I'm in sales leadership and leading geography. And so I've seen people come through sales, through service, through finance, obviously through operations, through technology. There's so many different ways that somebody can come into insurance. But once I was here, as you said, you can you can never leave.
You don't leave the family. You don't, folks. I mean, seriously, I was gone for like 15 years and I came back. I'm like, I just think I'll be back. He said, "We'll come back another way." I said, okay, it works. It totally works. That's kind of, we like insurance. Insurance is good for you. Everyone should have insurance. It's one of the few professions that goes from child to adult and home to auto to business. It's just one of those broad things. Um, my question is, how would you, what, like the basic way, if someone says to you, "Linde, why should I come into insurance?" We just name some things here, but I mean, I'm a gay Latino, or I'm a gay Asian, or I'm a gay Asian, or non-binary. Whatever. Like, why do you think that we, as this kind of community, should come into this business?
Well, I think that there's been a lot of ground that's been covered in the last 5 years, let's just say. A lot of focus on creating an atmosphere where everyone belongs and everyone has a place. I think our company has 7 different employee resource groups to support, different groups, and not one was created from the top down. They've all been created from the bottom up. And so I think, from that perspective, it is a welcoming industry that you can be yourself at most firms. I'm not going to say all firms, because not every industry is perfect. But I also think that it is a very, very good kept secret, because if you are good at sales and connecting with people, right? Because it's that connection
Yeah,
and that advocacy that drives outcomes and results. If you're good at that, you can make a boatload of money. So you can build personal wealth to the point where it's intergenerational wealth that you can pass on. And so, you get out of this industry what you put into it. And I've always said to people, at Marsh and at Willis, hey, there's, at Marsh, 66,000 jobs, at Willis, 45,000
big
jobs.
companies, folks, big
Which
companies.
one do you want next? Right. And so, there's also a lot of opportunity when you look across the spectrum, as you said. Within the brokerage space, you've got all of the different functions: marketing, you've got placement, you've got finance, you've got sales, you've got service, you've got operations. That in
Yeah,
itself is a pretty big spectrum. And you've got all the insurance carriers that you could work for, and then there's a ton of vendors that support our industry. And so the options are broad, and there's a lot of opportunity here.
yeah. Lastly, why IABCAL? Why should people join an association? I always think it's great for prestige reasons, networking, products, services. So why do you think it's cool?
Well, I think you just covered it, right? And the associations that we have in our industry are important because they bring people together. We can rally around certain elements, things that are changing, regulations, and create an environment where, instead of being competitors for a day, we could, brokers and agents can come together and actually drive change in our industry.
Yes. Lindy, thank you for being on the show. You're delightful. Thank you very much. Thanks for all of your hard work too that you do every day for inclusion, diversity, and equity. I think it's very important.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you. Tell them where they can follow you if they want to work with you. She works. So where can they follow your company Newfront and all that? Where can they follow?
I would say find us at newfront.com, and find me at Linde Hotchkiss on Twitter. I'm not really that good at, but let's go with LinkedIn, which is a great way to find me.
Yes, please do that. And IABCAL.org is you go there and check out all the kinds of things they have over there. If you're not a member already, consider it. Take a look over there, see what they're offering. They have lots of services, classes, programs, all kinds of stuff. This podcast is everywhere you want to be. So it's on every audio streaming service platform you can think of, that I can think of. And on my network, JLJ Media on YouTube, you can check out this interview and many others that are on there for that. I'm James Lott Jr. Enjoy the rest of your June, and we'll see you next month.